All right, so let's talk a little bit about Figma's coordinate system. In Figma, by default, when you have an empty page like this, you just have a big gray void. And this guy actually has a coordinate system, so if you draw a rectangle, you're going to see the x and y values change up here. But typically, like, that doesn't mean very much. Okay, so it's at 1379x in this gigantic void. What does that even mean? It's like, what's the position of a planet in space? Like, well, sure, you can give it a coordinate, but because it's kind of infinite, this canvas, it doesn't really mean anything. So I rarely rely on the coordinate system out here. So instead, what we'll do is we'll create a frame. So I'll create a frame and I'll draw it like this. And that frame has a coordinate system. So 99% of the time when I'm actually producing something, I create a frame which matches like maybe a laptop device size or a mobile screen or an icon size, something that like I know the size of, I have a goal, and I want a coordinate system for that. So if we're designing a landing page, what I'll do is I'll go to frame and Figma suggests some sizes here. So I'll just choose like a MacBook Pro 16-inch, oh, actually 14 inches more neutral. And then I can start working in here. Because in here, the coordinate system makes more sense. I kind of know if I'm designing a landing page, if I put this at 0, 0, yep, that means 0, 0. Like it means the upmost corner in this landing page coordinate system. And similar, like, okay, so I want the page content to be 1000 pixels and 200 pixels high. That's my hero section on this landing page. And I want it to be 80 pixels from the top. Okay, so all that makes sense within the context of this screen. But like if I put this out here and it's 1503 times, or that's the X position and the Y position is 1271, that doesn't really mean anything. So that's why we tend to use these frames to sort of give our coordinate systems some kind of meaning. Yeah, so that's essentially what you need to know about coordinate systems in Figma. Figma also has support for groups, so you can take two unrelated things like this, or three unrelated things like this, and you can group them. So you can just press like that and do group selection, or just Command G. And that still lives in the same coordinate system, so all of these guys still relate to the coordinate system of the frame. So a group does not in any way affect the coordinate system. And a group gets a bounding box, but that's just based on the content. So if we move this out a little bit, the bounding box is going to get bigger. So groups are just like a way to get a nicer structure out here and to be able to move things as one, but it does not affect the coordinate system. You can put frames inside frames. It's very common. And so if you perhaps want a coordinate system inside a coordinate system, you can totally do that. So quite often you will do something like you will draw an icon. And so we want this icon to be 14 pixels times 14 pixels. And so we can zoom in here and we can draw a little icon using the pen tool like that. Beautiful icon. And I want to be able to like work on this icon in an isolated context. I want it to be beautifully centered in this coordinate system. Maybe I have two icons and I sort of want them to behave in similar ways. So they both have this 14 times 14 pixel coordinate system. And maybe I have some guides around like how we center the icons. So I want them to have their own coordinate system. But then of course I can drag them into the main coordinate system. And now I can position this guy. So let's say I want it to be like at 100 pixels X, 100 pixels Y, and that's awesome. So now this frame is positioned inside this frame, but the elements inside this guy still has the same coordinate system. So this guy only looks at its parent's coordinate system. So it says like I'm at x2 and y 2.5 because it's inside this coordinate system, this frame. But this frame, however, is positioned at 100, 100 relative to this frame. So that's just something to be aware of. Like frames can contain other frames, and each frame creates a new coordinate system. And again, if you've used CSS calls that stacking context, where if you add a position relative, or if you add a transform to a layer inside CSS, that's going to create a new stacking context, which is just the same thing as saying a new coordinate system, essentially. So yeah, that's the coordinate system inside Figma. Frames get coordinate systems and frames can contain other frames. I think that's a TLDR.